Hollywood is a sucker for comeback tales, and Sara Gilbert briefly had one of the greatest. A renowned program has been brought back to life. Enormous success. She had to win creative control the hard way. However, what came next was much more complex and much darker. Years of hard work and personal ties were destroyed when a single controversy turned into a career-defining turning point. All of a sudden, Sara was more than just a producer and an actor, music. She became the emotional focal point of a predicament with no simple solutions. Few people fully comprehend how the decisions she took will alter her personal life, career, and public image. Born into a royal family on television. Joining the family business typically entails taking over a farm or managing the local store. However, television was the family business for Sara Gilbert. Not just any television, but the foundation itself. That does not imply that she was born with success. Sara earned every career milestone by putting in a lot of effort. Her grandfather, Harry Crane, was a television writer who got his big break working on a variety show called Cavalcade of Stars, which was hosted by the legendary Jackie Gleason. Nevertheless, there is no denying that she came from a music family with deep roots in the industry, roots that stretched back to the early days of American TV. In 1951, Gleason requested that Crane and Joe Bigelow, his writing partner, immediately create a skit. The concept was straightforward: a noisy Brooklyn working-class man and his understanding wife. Ralph and Alice Creighton were introduced in that sketch. The honeymooners were born before anyone knew it. The sketch quickly gained enormous popularity and emerged as the show's most memorable section. Long before Sara ever set foot on a set, it eventually branched off into its own series and became one of the most influential sitcoms in television history. She had a natural ability to tell stories. She also had a front-row ticket to contemporary stardom as a child. By the time Sara was old enough to notice, Melissa Gilbert, her half-sister, was already a seasoned professional. Melissa began performing at the age of 3, and by the time she was 9, she was well known for her role as Laura Les on Little House on the Prairie. Jonathan Gilbert, Sara's half-brother, was present as Willie Olson on the same program. Acting seemed normal, even exhilarating, after seeing her brothers at work. Sara quickly became infected with the same virus. She got a Kool-Aid ad when she was 6 years old. Music, she later made an appearance in the magical world of Disney's special tales of the Apple Dumpling Gang. The road was rapidly becoming clear. The ties to Hollywood continued after then. Before she became a talent agent, her mother, Barbara Cowan, was an actor. Nevertheless, no controlling parent forced Sara into the spotlight, even with the family background. She was the only source of the drive. She was desperate for it. She later acknowledged that simple childish reasoning played a role in that drive. She wanted in when her siblings returned from sets with gifts, especially around Christmas. However, there was more to that humor. She was drawn to acting from an early age, as if it were her destiny. She was drawn to the job for another sincere reason. She was expelled from school for acting. She found traditional classrooms difficult, and she has never concealed her dissatisfaction there. She had a creative outlet on set that she never had at school. And they didn't grasp how important that transformation was. For Sara, being creative wasn't just enjoyable, it was essential. Now when she looks back, she knows why she was unique. In creative environments and on movie sets, her personality flourished. Acting allowed her to breathe, be herself, and develop in a way that truly fit who she was, even when the strict structure of school felt oppressive. Early success comes at a cost. How did Sara Gilbert actually get her start, then? When she was cast in the television film Calamity Jane in 1984, her early career really took off. It was a modest but significant move that nearly instantly led to additional work. Shortly after, she starred with Fred Music Savage, another young talent who would go on to become a national name, in an ABC weekend special. None of them were well known at the time. Long before Savage's wondery years made him famous, they were merely young people trying to get employment. In retrospect, it seems like one of those peaceful times before everything shifts. Even earlier, Sara was on the verge of her big break. She tried out for a spin-off of the popular comedy The Facts of Life. The network had experimented with a number of spin-off concepts, including music, and this one was even broadcast as a backdoor pilot in the series finale. The cast that did, which included Juliette Lewis, Seth Green, and Mae Ballack, were full of potential stars, but Sara did not get the part. Ultimately, it was a good thing that the network decided to completely abandon the spin-off. When the chance of a lifetime presented itself, Sara was unrestricted by any contract. Roseanne was that chance. At the age of 13, she was chosen to play Darlene Connor, the sardonic and sharp-tongued daughter in what would go on to become one of the most innovative sitcoms, music, of its day. During the 9 seasons of Roseanne, one of its most enduring characters was Darlene, music. Sara felt comfortable in the position. Her demeanor and Darlene's sardonic, dry humor had a lot of similarities. Viewers immediately took notice. Her comedic timing was particularly noteworthy when she delivered Darlene's now famous one-liners. It was no accident that the edge was so sharp. Sara later revealed that the audition felt strangely familiar because she had practiced verbally sparring with her older sister for years. Years later, Sara publicly acknowledged her youth and awkwardness when she watched early footage of herself. There was a price to watching primetime television as a child. Everything felt more vulnerable and emotional when going through adolescence in front of millions of people. For her, however, stardom itself was not, music, surprising. Celebrity first felt fairly normal after witnessing her siblings' experiences. The emotional difference caught her attention. On the one hand, the outside world was admiring and paying attention. Conversely, there was, music, and the same sense of isolation and loneliness that most teenagers feel. The distinction was that hers took place in front of an audience. Sara was making more money than most adults ever see by the time she was barely out of her teens. A really difficult situation at home resulted from that financial reality. Her father, an entertainment lawyer, struggled financially after her parents' divorce and eventually turned to his adolescent daughter for support. Sara consented to give him a loan, but she eventually felt that this changed their relationship in ways she did not want. Instead of a financial dynamic, she desired a father. She eventually stopped sending him money in the hopes that things would get better. She started to regret that decision later in life. She realized as an adult how desperate he must have been to turn to his own child for assistance. And she realized that family giving is more important than pride. Sara faced yet another significant turning point as Roseanne moved into its 7th season. Yale had accepted her. She had to leave the performance that had characterized her adolescence in order to start college. She felt prepared. Although she had enjoyed the event, she was eager to move on. The creators took the risk of not writing Darlene out entirely. Even although Sara was away at school, they made the decision to keep the character alive in the narrative. It took a great deal of imagination and work. Future episodes were edited from pre-recorded scenes. To allow the cast and crew to film with her in New York, entire excursions were organized. Sara also worked during her breaks for spring, music, and Christmas. She was taken aback by the promise, but it also meant the world. It kept her connected to a character she loved and a show that obviously loved her back, all while enabling her to continue her schooling. Sara was also coming to terms with her sexuality at this time. In her late teens, she became aware of her attraction to women. She truly cared about music and even harbored a crush on Johnny Golly, her Roseanne co-star, during the time she was seeing him. However, something never seemed quite right. Following intimate times, she would experience an unanticipated grief that initially eluded her. Johnny thought he was the issue, unaware that Sara was having a private identity crisis. He reacted with empathy and understanding when she finally told him the truth. For years, he kept her private. She was well aware of the anxiety she felt about being openly homosexual in the film industry. She was concerned that it might harm her career or restrict the positions that she could be offered. Johnny was among the first people she called when she made the decision to come out in public. Before she told their story, she wanted to make sure he was okay with it. His reaction was prompt and encouraging. He offered her nothing but pride and affection, even pledging to be there for her if she needed him. Sara started looking into movie roles while balancing Roseanne and college. Sooty and Simpson, a 1990 television movie, was her debut motion picture appearance. 2 years later, she starred with Drew Barrymore in the sensual thriller Poison Ivy, which caused a much greater stir. Despite being of the same age and having both been child stars, their careers had taken quite opposite turns. Sara knew that Drew had previously experienced a fast-paced, difficult life, and she was intrigued and enlightened by that environment. But Drew's warmth was what really caught my attention. Almost immediately, the two clicked. It was more than just a friendship. Sara enjoyed her first kiss with another girl, Drew, while they were filming Poison Ivy. Music, it began as scene preparation but soon became something authentic. The distinction between acting and discovery, the roles that slipped away, was blurred as Drew later acknowledged that they leaned entirely into the moment, practicing off camera and enjoying themselves. In 2000, Sara Gilbert made a comeback to television comedy with the sitcom Welcome to New York, following a brief hiatus. It felt more like a return home to her than a comeback. The cadence of a four-camera sitcom felt familiar to her because she had grown up acting in front of live studio audiences. She had a profound understanding of the work environment, where the vitality of a live audience gave each day a sense of purpose and vitality. She also valued television's capacity to provide a sense, music, of stability. Goodbyes happened rapidly once film ventures concluded. Theoretically, television offered the chance to create something more durable, a shared experience that could linger for years rather than months. Sadly, Welcome to New York only lasted one season before failing to gain traction. Sara didn't slow down, though. Her cameo appearances on television, including a multi-episode arc on the high-stakes drama 24, kept her occupied. She quickly established herself in the television industry by landing a recurring role as medical student Jane Figler on the medical drama ER. Music, she became a member of the cast of Jennifer Love Hewitt's television series, In the Game, in 2004. The program featured a sports television producer who was unexpectedly assigned to an ESPN on-air reporting position. It felt like a reunion of former adolescent stars attempting to forge their new chapter because the cast featured a number of well-known names from previous TV hits. However, the show was never given the opportunity to find a viewer. ABC quickly canceled it before it ever aired, despite having intended to utilize it as a mid-season replacement. It was one of those projects that disappeared before anyone could see it. Sara soon joined Girls on the Bus, another ABC pilot. She portrayed Helen, a political campaign reporter. Once more, the project was not included in the network's fall schedule. The pattern was annoying. Excellent work that was never fully realized on screen. Then a pivotal moment occurred. Sara played the intelligent, self-assured experimental physicist Leslie Winkle on The Big Bang Theory in 2007. The persona briefly piqued Leonard Hoffatter's interest and was the ideal antidote to Sheldon Cooper. She was reunited with Johnny Galecki, her previous Roseanne co-star, in that role. Leslie Winkle appeared to have a chance to join the show permanently for a brief period of time. Even a promotion to series regular was given to Sara. However, a few months later, an odd incident occurred. Silently, the character disappeared into the distance. Behind the scenes, Sara was relegated to recurring status when the producers were unable to come up with a clear path for Leslie. Her brief romance with Howard was one of the character stories that swiftly came to an end at the conclusion of the second season, Music, after which she virtually vanished. Leslie wouldn't return until a fleeting appearance at the conclusion of season 3, and then again a few years later. During this time, Sara's job was quite active, but she made a concerted effort to keep her personal life out of the spotlight. She had a long-term relationship with television producer Allison Adler for many years. The two discreetly established a life together even before Sara came out. With her writing and producing credits on series like Chuck, Glee, Just Shoot Me, and Family Guy, Allison Adler was already a significant figure in television. Her position as a formidable force behind the scenes was further cemented when she went on to produce the Supergirl television series. Sara and Allison welcomed 2 kids together. While Sara's reputation on TV continued to develop, their daughter Sawyer was born in 2007 and their son Hank in 2004. Building a family and establishing herself in a shifting television environment were as important to her during this time in her life as music. The gamble that made all the difference. Music. In 2010, Sara Gilbert's career took an unexpected turn that few anticipated. She presented CBS with a concept for a daytime chat program she had developed herself, rather than taking on another predetermined position. The talk turned to the show. Sara wasn't merely the inventor. As one of the panelists, she also made a big show of herself. A variety of personalities that felt vibrant, honest, and surprising were present in the inaugural lineup, which featured well-known performers like Julie Chen Moonves and Sharon Osbourne. The show started off as a joke, which is ironic. According to Sara, the idea originated when she and a buddy were talking about how awful she would be hosting a talk show. She was not naturally talkative, bashful, and uneasy speaking in front of others. In their made-up version, she saw herself sitting in silence with guests in a dark basement, pausing awkwardly for extended periods of time. The concept lingered in her mind even though the joke never materialized. Later, in the most mundane way imaginable, the true inspiration struck. She came to a conclusion one day while bathing. She saw that no daytime program accurately represented the discussions she was having in her personal life. Nothing emphasized women discussing relationships, children, friendship, and daily challenges in a casual, comfortable manner. The discussion was based on that void in daytime television. Sara felt afraid even after she sold the idea. Although hosting forced her to step outside of her comfort zone, she saw it as a necessary challenge. Although she acknowledged that she was anxious, she thought that the anxiety would help her develop. She even joked when selling the show that she didn't want to do it and that the network would surely acquire it. Nevertheless, she gave her all when CBS said yes. When the discussion debuted in 2010, Sara took on a position that had previously seemed unthinkable to her. Sara and her co-hosts went on the Television Critics Association press tour to promote the series just before it premiered. In front of a room full of media, Sara made yet another decision that would change her life. She came out as a lesbian in public. The timing was deliberate. She had kept her personal life quiet for the majority of her career, and it had never affected her acting career. However, doing a talk show required sharing personal, music, experiences and true anecdotes. She believed that without being honest about who she was and who she loved, she could not achieve that. Sara decided to make the announcement face-to-face rather than via the network. Instead of feeling remote or staged, she wanted the moment to feel immediate and personal. In retrospect, even she was taken aback by her increased candor. The woman who used to be very private was suddenly hosting a show that was all about being transparent. Music. The discussion struck a chord with the audience nearly right away. The show's identity, particularly its emphasis on motherhood, parenthood, and the reality of family life, was formed by Sara's initial idea. But controversy also resulted from this concentration. The discourse was too similar to a concept that author Angela Wilder had developed years earlier termed motherhood, which focused on the everyday experiences of mothers, according to the lawsuit that Wilder filed. Wilder claimed that the talk largely lifted from her original idea, which she had presented to Sony but was rejected. CBS vehemently objected, stating that they had never received the proposal in the first place. Wilder eventually dismissed the complaint after considering the facts, and the concert continued without any more legal issues. Sara's private life was also changing behind the scenes. She announced her separation from longtime partner Allison Adler in 2011. Her officials said the separation was friendly. However, the emotional toll of the split quickly became apparent. While talking about the highs and lows of marriage on an episode of The Talk, Sara lost it and started crying live. She acknowledged how significant that period of her life had been and talked openly about the hurt of ending a committed relationship. She acknowledged that although she had never been married, she had cherished the time she had spent creating a life with a loved one. She sobbed as she acknowledged that she didn't fully get how some couples were able to maintain their relationship for decades. How is it made to work? Her voice was full of hope, even in that heartbreaking moment. She wished to think that enduring love existed and that she would eventually discover it as well. Shortly after Sara Gilbert and Allison Adler parted ways, Sara began an unexpected new chapter with Linda Perry, who was as skilled and inventive. Perry's most well-known role was as the lead singer of Four Non-Blondes. Her impact, however, extended well beyond that. She had developed a famous career behind the scenes as a songwriter, penning hits for musicians like Christina Aguilera, Gwen, Music, Stephanie, and Alicia Keys. In the early 2000s, their romance started out quietly. The two kept their relationship largely under wraps until rumors started to circulate in 2011. Sara then shocked everyone by making their engagement public on TV in April 2013. The proposal itself was meticulously prepared and quite personal. Sara brought their families together, organized a family picnic, and even hired musician John Waite to play. To top it all off, she unveiled a line of t-shirts that asked Linda to marry her by writing a straightforward yet impactful question. After being married in March 2014, the couple's family expanded once more in less than a year. They welcomed their son Rhodes in March 2015. For Sara, who already had 2 kids from her prior relationship with Allison Adler, this was a new phase. Life with their blended family seemed to come effortlessly to them. Even though the marriage seemed stable on the surface, it ended in 2019 when Sara filed for divorce after 5 years. She first sought a formal separation, alleging irreconcilable differences, according to court filings. As the news spread, both women first kept quiet, preferring seclusion over making public statements. After a while, Linda Perry talked about the breakup and thanked him for their time together. She acknowledged that change is a necessary aspect of growing and living, describing their partnership as a component of a greater life journey. She spoke without resentment, even when they were apart. 2 years later, the divorce was formalized. They both decided not to get spousal support. Additionally, their parenting style was well-defined, even if the specifics of their financial arrangement were kept confidential. Music, in addition to agreeing to share custody of their son, Sara and Linda promised to keep in regular contact on all facets of his life, including his general well-being, education, and health. Parenting held great significance for Linda. She has publicly discussed how having her son provides her the opportunity to do better than what she went through as a child. As a mother, being intentional and present became a means to heal and build something stronger for the next generation. Linda's still talking positively about Sara even after the divorce was official. She made it apparent that even though their marriage was over, they were still connected. They had a child together, and their relationship would only grow stronger than music. A romantic ending was successfully transformed into a polite co-parenting partnership by Sara Gilbert and Linda Perry. Music, Sara Gilbert's most recent news is devastating. Sara Gilbert was working hard to make the discussion a success during the day, but her thoughts were quickly returning to a completely different realm. She started subtly promoting music for what many believed was unachievable. Roseanne, the beloved comedy, will be fully revived. She wasn't only making a comeback as an actor this time. Behind the scenes, Gilbert was crucial as well, filling in as a producer and assisting with the direction of the project. Naturally, she also reverted to her well-known character as Darlene Connor. What's even more amazing is that every member of the original cast, including Roseanne Barr and John Goodman as Dan Connor and Roseanne, came back with her. It was not in a boardroom that the rebirth began. It began on a sofa. Sara proposed that they conduct a little character sketch for the studio audience during John Goodman's visit on the program. It was a natural moment. There was still chemistry. Then, overcome with emotion, Sara made her way back to her dressing room. Suddenly, it was clear that this story had more to say and that the time was ripe. The revival proceeded in spite of all obstacles. Expectations were extremely high and anxiety was even higher when Roseanne rejoined ABC in 2018. Many were concerned that bringing back such a popular program may harm its reputation. Rather, the reverse occurred. The launch was a huge success. The number of ratings skyrocketed. Critics reacted favorably. The revival averaged almost 20 million viewers per episode, making it the year's most watched television show, according to industry statistics. It did better than juggernauts like Sunday Night Football, NCIS, and The Big Bang Theory. ABC approved a second season right away. Sara Gilbert's perseverance was given a lot of credit for that accomplishment. She had been pursuing the concept for years, not letting it die. She frequently characterized herself as someone who just wouldn't give up rather than someone who was born with success, music. Then everything fell apart. Roseanne Barr made a racist social media remark on Valerie Jarrett, a former aide to the Obama administration, just weeks after the victorious comeback. Music, there was an instant and massive outcry. ABC took swift action and abruptly canceled the show. The network's leadership denounced the comments as disrespectful and wholly inconsistent with their principles. The shock was traumatic for the crew and actors. Sara Gilbert, who was clearly upset, addressed the matter in public. She highlighted that the show has always stood for diversity, love, and inclusion and expressed delight in the work they had completed. She also made it apparent that she agreed with ABC's choice. She also acknowledged the true human cost of the cancellation by speaking candidly about the hundreds of crew members who were abruptly laid off. Later, Sara reaffirmed her position on social media, separating the actors and crew from Barr's remarks and emphasizing that one person's remarks did not reflect the opinions of all parties. Similar opinions were expressed by other cast members. Music, Michael Fishman expressed his heartbreak for the Roseanne family as a whole and categorically denounced the comments. The musician Emma Kenney, who portrayed Darlene's daughter, also publicly denounced Barr, calling the remarks intolerable. John Goodman said very little. For her side, Roseanne Barr accused Sara Gilbert of publicly betraying her and held her responsible for the fallout. Barr continued to show hostility in subsequent interviews, indicating that their relationship had entirely broken down. However, the tale did not stop there. The Conners, a new series, was swiftly unveiled by ABC. Without Roseanne Barr, the story would continue on the show. Her character died from an unintentional opioid overdose and was written out. Once again, Sara Gilbert took the lead, both as an executive producer and as the show's star. At about the same time, Sara made yet another important choice. After 9 seasons and over 10 years, she declared in April 2019 that she was departing the talk show. The decision was thoughtful and emotionally charged. By that time, she was juggling her work on The Conners with other demanding responsibilities. Behind-the-scenes difficulties also existed. The View was fiercely competitive and the talk's momentum had been waning. The CBS incident involving network boss Les Moon further rocked the show. In order to support him, his wife, long-standing co-host Julie Chen, decided to quit the show. Sara, who had collaborated with her for years, was among the cast members who were severely impacted by her departure. These incidents added up to a lot of weight. Sara later acknowledged that family played a major role in her choice to end the conversation. She desired more music time to devote to acting and producing, as well as more time with her kids. She also said that it has been challenging to continuously discuss her private life on national television. That transparency came at a price for someone who was inherently introverted and secretive. During this time, she was described in profiles as being incredibly shy, sharp-witted, and highly clever. Despite her success, her demeanor has never really fit the role of host of a daytime talk show. The Conners, meantime, were unavoidably compared to Roseanne. After the huge debut of the revival, ratings fell sharply. Nevertheless, the show managed to hold its own in a challenging television environment, outperforming several of its rivals. Sara was still doing double duty behind the scenes. She stayed after filming to work closely with the writers as an executive producer, a position that is not open to all actresses. She was the exception in this instance. The music board respected her dedication, focus, and preparedness.